Time now for our Rants and Raves of the week, and I'll start with Dan to my right.
I have a qualified rave for Jarl Mohn, who is the new chief executive of NPR. I believe that we have some footage of him from the 70s when he was doing sort of a prototype of MTV News under the name of Lee Michaels. Great stuff. You gotta love the hair.
Looks like a liberal to me.
Yeah.
MTV News, that gives it away.
But anyway, well, actually, already it's been reported that he gives overwhelmingly to Democrats, so you may be right. But NPR has gone through a series of instability at the top. Jarl Mohn seems like a pretty creative guy. He's been at E!, he's been at MTV, Liberty Media. If he can bring some of that energy and forward thinking in leading NPR into the digital era without introducing MTV and E! News values to it, I think it'll be a good thing for NPR, and they certainly need somebody at the top who's going to stay there for a while, so hopefully he's going to do that.
All right. Marjorie, what do you got?
This is a rave for something that's on WGBH here, Frontline. And the reason I mention it this week is because the alleged marathon bombers' lawyers are arguing that the death penalty should be declared unconstitutional now because of this botched execution out in Oklahoma. And a couple of weeks ago, I think it was the 29th, the 22nd of April, Frontline did at least a couple of documentaries on prison life. One was about solitary confinement. One was about we're incarcerating everything that moves in the United States of America now, and they were both devastating. And for people who think that it's necessarily worse to die than to be in one of these horrible supermax prisons for the rest of your life, I recommend looking at Frontline. It was greatly reported, devastatingly photographed, and it just gives you a real sense of what prison life is like.
I gave Frontline a lot of credit to that. I spoke to the producer because he got into a maximum security prison in Maine. We cannot get into any of our maximum security prisons here in Massachusetts. I don't know if you can anywhere else in the country, probably a few.
It's very hard.
Governor Romney outlawed it back in, when he was governor.
We should be able to get in there because it's sickening. It is sickening.
It's part of our government system, and it should be transparent. Yep. They were afraid that we were glorifying certain prisoners like, Ben Laguerre and those people, but of course we should be able to get in, and especially to see solitary confinement. Good luck doing that. All right, Susie, what do you got?
So I have a rave for the sewer that is the internet.
I'm going to copyright that.
You set me up, I actually thought this Bring Back Our Girls campaign that we saw this week, it's been going on for a couple weeks, but we really saw it gain traction this week, and it was about the 200-some girls that have been kidnapped in Nigeria, and the media really did drop the ball on that story. We weren't really covering it, and this was a Twitter campaign, and it suddenly got a lot of attention, and a lot of high-profile people. Malala tweeted with a sign, and then Michelle Obama tweeted with a sign, and then Hillary Clinton. So it really has brought attention to an issue we wouldn't have heard about if it weren't for the gutter.
Yeah.
There is one caveat, though, just to make it feel better, is that there was this unfortunate thing where, in some cases, this campaign was associated with a picture that was of women from a totally different part, or girls
from 10 years ago, from a completely
different part of Africa. This picture,
this little girl had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and so that was unfortunate. And again, it goes back to the don't just take things from the internet and use them, because a lot of people picked up this picture. But all in all, I think it's good that this is getting some attention.
You're right. It was not in the mainstream press at all until that campaign.
Yeah. Very good story in the Washington Post today, by the way, about the limits of hashtag activism, as they call it.
Yeah.
Although they did point to this campaign as one that actually is accomplishing some good.
Yeah, great.
Also, I still don't understand why they can't find the girls, but that's another story. All right, John.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if this is a rant or a rave. It's more like a reality check, because CNN, as we've discussed before, got a huge boost out of their wall-to-wall coverage of that missing Malaysian airliner. Well, I guess the story finally ran out of gas, and they went back to more of a mix of stories, and their ratings collapsed. Total implosion. Some of the lowest ratings they've ever gotten since then. And what this demonstrates to me is that you can't do what's the guy's name? Jeff Zucker? At CNN thought he was going to do here, which is develop this model of writing one hot story and doing nothing else, and that's how you're going to boost your ratings. It's like a sugar high. Once it fades, you're in trouble. because my sense is that the viewers want more of a brand if they're going to keep coming back to you. They may jones out with you on this particular story, but once it's over, you're still the same old kind of boring, uninteresting mix of stories with anchors trying to dress younger than they are, and they're pushing their hashtags and trying to be hip to an audience that has no interest in CNN, the really young hip audience. So I think there's a moral to the story there. However, on the way out of the BZ newsroom to come over here, I looked up at the monitor, and sure enough, there was the Malaysian airliner story back on with a caption that said, "Source, they may have been looking at the wrong ocean."
That is unbelievable. All right, well, I have a rant for New York Magazine and a writer named Joe Hagan, who did a piece on Lara Logan called Benghazi and the Bombshell, about, look at whether she'll ever return after the horribly mistaken report she did about what happened at the embassy there, and she interviewed somebody who made up the whole story. But my problem with this piece was that it was about her career and how she came up and how she came to be, and how beautiful she was, and how Les Moonves and everybody picked up on her because of her exotic accent. The piece was rife with sexism itself, right down to the title of the thing, and it was loaded with anonymous sources from snarky people and producers who had worked with her on her way up. I thought it was really outrageous. I mean, I only know Lara Logan the tiniest bit. I think you've had some encounters with her, and I never got those senses from her. But regardless of some of the way it was written and everybody anonymous, it was outrageous.
It really gives the use of anonymous sources a bad name. Sometimes we have to do it, but this is just negative comment after negative comment. Nobody had the guts to put their name to it.
That's right.